Hey friends, welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummel. It's great to see you here again this week on this show that we talk about everything having to do with your personal journey. And we try to bring tips, tools, and practices that'll help you on whatever journey of self discovery you're on. So, what we're doing today is we're going to get into the idea of how to break a habit. And usually people wait until January 1st to dig into this, but this time we're going to start a little early. And so we got to look at what is a habit in the first place. What is a habit? And so there can be good habits and not so good habits. Good habits are things that kind of take you where you want to go, that support the life you're wanting to live. Not so good habits or bad habits do the opposite. They kind of fight against something that we know or want to have that's better for us. And so in the Genius Way philosophy, Genius Way philosophy, we look at habits in terms of momentum. And so when you're thinking about momentum, there is like an image that I want to share with you. So when I was a kid, I had a little above the ground pool. It's like a round pool. And I used to have my friends over, and we would all go around the circle in the above the ground pool. And we would create kind of like a wave or momentum in the water. And if we did it long enough, that momentum, we didn't even have to try. We could just let go. And the momentum that we created just kept us moving, right? Then the other fun thing that we did is turn around and try to walk against the momentum. And that walking in the other direction, oh my God, it felt so heavy. Felt like we were walking against a whole ton of bricks. And it took a long time for that momentum going in a certain direction to kind of calm down and for us to make the momentum going in the other direction. So habits are just like this. When we practice something over and over and over again, especially unconsciously, there's a momentum, there's a force that gets created going in a certain direction. And so when I say unconsciously practicing, what does that mean? So every day, all day long, we're practicing something. You can't get out of it. You're practicing something on like every level. And so an example of that is, let's say, negative self-talk. If you are, kind of critical of yourself, every time you do a certain thing, like let's say let's say you're gardening, you go out there and your vegetables are just not working. And you can say to yourself, well, I don't have a green thumb. I'm a terrible gardener. And then every time you go out there and you kind of have that same experience and you say that negative self-talk to yourself, you're practicing that. And we can't help it. We always practice something all day long. It might be heading us down our personal life journey the way we want to go, or it might be taking us away from it. But practice we will, and practice we do. And so this practice, whether it's conscious or unconscious, creates a momentum with it. It creates energy, and it creates the tendency to want to keep going in that same direction. It's easier, much easier. Like I've shared about this before, but one of the things that I have trouble with is, and I'm always trying to work on it consciously, is grabbing for a snack late at night. It's definitely not a good habit. It puts weight on but it's an unconscious habit that I'm working on diligently. And so to work with that habit, I have to practice a different habit in order to take the momentum away from it. Okay, so we'll get into that in a minute. But here's something more about that momentum. The way that the momentum is created is through practice, and we create the momentum through our own energy by doing that thing over and over and over again, consciously or unconsciously. When we start to try and break that habit, sometimes it's just like in that pool scenario. Sometimes it feels really hard to break it and to create a good habit because the momentum is so strong going in that direction. And so when we're trying to go against it, it feels like we're going against an outside force, like everything is against us. But really, all we're doing is going against the energy, the momentum that we created with our own energy. No outside force is making it hard for us to break a habit. It's our own energy that has been set up as momentum. But the good news is, if you can go against that momentum by starting a new healthy habit, what you'll do is stop investing in that old momentum, in that old habit, and eventually, since it's not being fed, it will slow down. It'll slow down all by itself since you're not investing in that anymore and you're investing in something else. So you don't have to fight with the old momentum. You just have to stop kind of putting your energy into it. But first you have to recognize, what is it that I'm doing? How am I feeding this old thing? So there is a really beautiful story, and it's been told in many different cultures. So I'm just going to tell kind of a vanilla version of this story, and I'll say that there is a old person and a young person sitting by a fire, and the old person is telling stories, and all of a sudden speaks about that inside of him there are two dogs, a black dog and a white dog, and he says that the white and black dog are fighting with each other. And the young person said, wow, I never heard about something like that. I said, yes, there's a white dog and a black dog, they're fighting, and the black dog is definitely going to win. And the younger person said, why is the black dog going to win? And the old guy said, well, because I've been feeding him. And so that's a real pertinent to this issue. First, we have to see, what is it that we're feeding? What is it that we're giving energy to and credence to? And what is it that we're feeding by practicing it? So you might see that, you might think that practicing is something that you have to try to do, but it's not. We practice something all day long by doing it over and over and over again, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And so when you can really, really own the fact that, what am I doing with my time right now? How am I spending my time? What am I feeding? Which momentum am I creating right now? That's really where it comes down to it. And so here's the thing. When you are changing momentum, again, it feels like you're going against a foreign energy. When you can recognize, this is only my own energy, and I have so much of it that I've created this momentum in this certain direction, right? I created it in this certain direction, and now that I want to go in a different direction, I'm struggling. But remember, that's your own energy that you're struggling against. It will die down. It will calm down. It will dissipate if you create a different practice and you feed that different practice. So one thing I want to show you is a clip that kind of illustrates this. Let me set this up for you. This is from a film called Midnight Express. And in it, the main character gets caught for smuggling some drugs and gets thrown in a Turkish prison. And he's in this Turkish prison, and the trauma of being in here is so great that he starts to lose it. He starts to lose his mind. And so in this little clip that I'm going to show you, you'll see that all the inmates in this prison have kind of given up on their lives, and they're walking around this post in one direction. And just check out this clip and see how in the middle things start to change. And then the other side we'll kind of get into and discuss it on how this can be happening for you too. Okay, yeah. So wow, I hope your habit isn't as hard as that one was, but I know sometimes it might feel like it. So what did this character do in the middle of this clip? basically, he started walking the other way because in this, the character realized, man, I am losing it and I'm going to die in here unless I get my together. Okay. I need to do something to break out of this state that I'm in. And so he starts walking in the other direction, and everybody's freaking out. And everyone here is going in the other direction. Um, they are the manifestation or the representation of the habit. They are the manifestation of everything going in the same way for long periods of time. And so to go in this other direction like he did, wow, that took a lot of inner strength, and it took a lot of commitment. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about is the commitment to it. So a lot of times people make big changes in their lives when there's something dire on the other side. Like, man, I got to stop, I've got to stop eating like that because my health is suffering, or I've got to start really working consciously on this other thing because the other part of my life is suffering for that. So when there's there's something at stake, it's easier sometimes to break a habit. But when that issue takes place, it's because someone has made a commitment. So what is a commitment? So I work with a lot of couples in my therapy practice, and one of the things that a lot of them don't know is something really, really obvious. They've forgotten that let's say the people are, let's say this couple is married. Not everyone is married that I work with, but the partnerships, and there is, to whatever extent, a commitment made when the partnership began. So what you got to see is that in partnership or in marriage, you're living your life, this person's living their life, you get married, now you're living yours, they're living theirs, and you're both contributing to the third thing, which is the marriage. It's a thing that you do, and it doesn't work by accident. Doesn't automatically work. You have to invest in it. You have to be conscious that we've decided to do this thing for the rest of your life, hopefully. And that commitment to that project that you're doing together, because it's a project. We are doing the marriage thing. We are doing the partnership thing. You don't forget that you've made that commitment and you have to work on it. So bringing that back down to habits and this movie clip, at that moment, that guy made a commitment to himself. I got to get out of here. And the first way for me to start doing that is to start going against everything that I've been doing, because he had been in there for months. Okay. And he was getting really, really, really indoctrinated into that culture and kind of gave up. When he decided to go against all that momentum, he decided, I'm committing to getting out of here. I have to get out of here. And this is the first step. So if you're wanting to change your life and you're wanting to break a habit, there is a commitment that you have to make. So how do you make that commitment? First, you have to visualize what habit you're trying to replace the old one with. Okay? You have to recognize, oh, I'm in this habit. I'm eating snacks late at night. I drink too much. I always pick the wrong type of person, something like that. I don't hold my boundaries strong enough for people, and people walk all over me. Whatever it is, you kind of define it. You recognize that you've been practicing it, and so you're really good at it. We get really good at our old habits. And then you got to decide, what else instead of that would I like to be good at? So let's say you have a boundary issue and you let people into your life and you think that what you can do for people is your value. What you can do is, I visualize a life in which I am loved for just what I am. I don't have to add something to somebody else's life to be valuable to them. I can just be myself and I'm valued for that. So you imagine that, and then you make a commitment to create that habit, to practice that. So in this example of keeping boundaries, someone would say, hey, you'd say, hey, you want to hang out? Say, sure. If you want to bring some food over to my house and cook dinner for me, and and wash my car, yeah, let's hang out. And your boundary could be like, no thanks. I'm not really interested in taking care of you. I just wanted to see if you wanted to hang out. Okay, so the boundary is like, no, I'm not going to do all those things to be valuable to you. So that's the commitment. And so with this commitment, that marks the time when you realize I am doing something here. It's not some vague idea. I am actively committed to creating a new habit so that my practicing the old habit dies away. It's like literally practicing baseball pitching and saying, well, what I'd rather actually do is go swimming. And so every time you go to pick up a baseball, you realize, oh, I've got a commitment. I'd rather go swimming. And then you go and jump in the pool instead. It's like that. But it's a commitment, and it's something to remember as you go along. Now, here's the key. When you have committed to changing a habit, to breaking a habit, the tendency to practice the old habit becomes your cue to practice the new one. You don't even need to do anything special. When you go down to pick up that baseball, you remember, oh, that's my cue. I've defined it. Whenever I try to pick up the baseball to practice pitching, that's my cue to go swimming. That's my cue to practice the other skill of swimming. Okay, so that's the metaphor that we use. Practice something else instead of kind of where you want to go instead of the old habit. That takes away the momentum from the old one, creates momentum in another direction. And remember, that momentum gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more you practice it. So what we want to be doing here is practicing the habits that take us where we want to go, and taking away the energy from what habits we've got set up that are not doing that. So it's pretty simple. And we're back. So how do you actually first recognize what a habit is? How do you first recognize a bad habit, something that you're not wanting to do anymore, something that you're wanting to change? Usually that happens when you become aware of something that is fighting within you. You're fighting against two parts of yourself rather, fighting against each other. So it's a little bit like the white dog and the black dog situation. So in parts theory, we can discover in therapy all kinds of different subparts of ourselves that have conflicting ideas, conflicting uh, modalities, conflicting wants and needs. And usually, when we're trying to break a habit, obviously we have to choose one or the other of these parts in order to create the momentum in that direction. And so that's a question you have to ask yourself when you find two parts of yourself struggling with each other. You got to just kind of sit down, take a minute, and ask yourself, which one of these parts do I want to feed? Which one of these parts do I want to become stronger? And it's usually the part that you're wanting that in that moment feels weaker than the other part. And in that moment, you got to realize it's only stronger because I've been doing it longer. I can take that same energy away from that old habit, put it into this new one, and let this one kind of just die down. Let this one just run out of momentum from the energy that I'm putting into it. So the question is, which one of these things that I'm fighting with, which one do I want to become stronger? Okay? When you do that again, you're making the commitment. Definitely, I want this one to become stronger. I want the one that's leading to a more healthy, more embodied, more empowered state that I want to kind of take forward with me. That's the one I want to become stronger. Realize the energy is already there. The energy doesn't care where you put it. We have all this energy, this conscious awareness, even unconscious awareness. it doesn't care where it goes. We're allowed to spend that any way we want. And so, uh, if you want to put that into the habit that takes you away from where you want to be, that's fine. If you want to put it in the other habit, that's fine too. So look at the struggle, see what the payoff is for feeding the old habit. Like, what do I get out of it? What feels good about this? Like for me, grabbing a snack at night, I get some kind of temporary. My tongue feels good for a second. I feel like I'm getting some kind of, some kind of treat because I've had a hard day. I worked all day. Um, but then it turns out, wait a minute, tomorrow I have to live with the fact that I ate stuff that I didn't really need, and that that now I have to, you know, kind of lose the weight somewhere. And so I'm making that conscious choice to stop eating snacks at night, and you can completely hold me to this one, because I'm asking you to for yourself. I'm making that commitment for this other part that wants to be healthier, that doesn't want to have to struggle. And it's just a matter of slowing that one down, feeding it less, in my case, literally, and then applying that energy and that awareness and that practice in another direction. Okay, that's really what it comes down to. All right, so I'm going to guide you through a visualization here, and this is going to be about how to create healthier momentum in the direction that you want to get into after you find out which habit you're trying to break, and also to take you through the commitment process of breaking that habit. So let's check this out, and I'll see you on the other side. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, and then deeply exhale. Imagine that you're outside in a garden that you've been tending. Your garden is divided into two equal parts. On one side of the garden, there are plants that represent an old, unwanted habit. And on the other side, there are plants that represent a new, healthy habit that you're wanting to create. Look at the side where the old, unhealthy habits plants are growing. There's a garden sign that has the name of the old habit inscribed on it. What does the sign say? As you look at this side of the garden, what do you see growing there? What else can you notice about this side of the garden? Now, for the other side of the garden, there's a different sign that has the name of a new and healthy habit. What's written on this sign? What's growing in this side of the garden? Take some time to notice whatever you can about this side of the garden that represents your new, healthy habit. And now you notice that a small spring that has been irrigating your garden has mostly been flowing into the old habit section. As a result, the old habit section is getting far more water than the new habit section. You also see that just by placing a few rocks at the source of this spring, you can change the course of the water to flow into the new healthy habit section. See yourself making this small change at the source of the spring. As a result of making this change and the water being diverted to your new habits section, you notice something new growing there. What is it that you see? Now you understand that by making this small change at the source of the life-giving water, you can supply the new habit garden with what it needs to flourish. And by channeling the water there instead of to the old garden, whatever is in the old section of the garden is allowed to wither away. With this realization, you know that all you need to do in the future to assure that your new habit garden is fed is to make the small change at the source of the nourishing water. And now you're coming back into the present moment, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. And we're back. So, how did you enjoy that experience? Were you able to see a habit that was really important for you to break and see how to kind of walk through it? So, remember, go back to this show again and try this guided visualization as many times as you want to see if you can kind of get things moving in terms of, if you didn't see something on your first go around, it's important to try it again to see if you can get some movement on breaking these habits, because this is a kind of a tried and true technique, and you can definitely do this. So one of the other things that I think is really important to mention here about breaking habits is that there is no shame in having a habit, and there is a huge emotional weight on us when we first come to realize, hey, look, I've got a bad habit here. I've got something that is not helping me and I want to break it. And there's a certain amount of shame that can come with that. Like, overeating or being with the wrong person again and again and again, or who knows what it is. There's a zillion habits. And so the way to kind of move into this is to become aware of the shame or the guilt or the judgment that you put on yourself about this habit, and kind of switch it up and see this just basically as a business decision. So let me explain. When you have two habits, one that's kind of taking you in the wrong direction, one that's taking you in the direction you want to go, there is, if you look at it as if someone's offering you a business deal. And for this first deal, let's say going with the old habit, The deal is, okay, you're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep going down the same road, and nothing will change in your life. In fact, it'll probably get worse. And then you look at the other one, the good habit, and you're like, well, it's going to take you a little while to get over this and to create a new habit, but eventually down the road, it's going to make you happier. It'll be lighter. It'll lead to new possibilities, you know. And so, if you just look at it kind of clinically, and as if somebody was offering you something, which one would you like to take? And so, every time that you make the effort to go with the new habit, you just have to look at it like there's no guilt, there's no shame. Let me just pick one. I mean, it's as simple as that. In the moment, to break a habit, you have to be in the very moment and make the different choice. So it's really a small thing that we're doing, a very small thing over and over and over again. And that's what makes it powerful. Just like you've seen a waterfall coming down the side of a stone mountain, it wears it away after a long time. And now it has a free path to go down, right? So, same thing with this. Changing a habit, breaking a habit means you're making just a basic decision in every single moment when you're faced with that decision. And when you set it up as a commitment, like we talked about before, you remember, okay, this is what I'm doing when this comes up. I'm choosing to do this in this small moment, just making that one decision. Like in the example I made, uh, having a snack at night when I don't need it. Okay. Um, I decide I have that little pang, or I have that little feeling like, oh, it's going to give me a treat and I'm going to feel better. And at that moment, remembering all the weight that I've ever had to lose, all the struggles, and then saying, nah, right in this 1 second, I can make a clinical decision. Nah, okay, let me just keep doing what I'm doing. And it goes away, it stops, but it takes doing it in the moment over and over and over again. So, as far as the judgment of having a habit, that is too much of a burden on your personal work. So, I want to say to you, don't judge yourself for having a habit, but I know you're going to, because this is kind of what we do. The thing is, really, if you open up the hood and look at the nuts and bolts, it's not don't judge yourself. It's like when you start judging yourself, do something different. Gently move away from the judgment. Choose the choice, the habit that you're wanting to make more consistent. Remember your commitment and kind of go in that way. Because the judgment is just way too much. It's like doing two things. I'm judging myself while I'm trying to change a habit. How do you think that's gonna work? It doesn't work very well. So I know you're going to judge yourself, but when you find yourself judging yourself, move away from it. Unburden yourself from that extra weight of having to do two things instead of just changing a habit, and then choose what you've committed to do as a new habit over and over and over again. And guaranteed, it will become easier, and eventually it's going to become second nature, so you don't even have to think about it anymore. And this goes for like any habit we're talking about that you're wanting to break, any habit that you're wanting to change and redirect. So remember, we're talking about your energy here. Whatever you put your energy into and your time gets stronger. And whatever you take your energy and time away from gets weaker. So just pay attention to what you're practicing. Break it down into what's happening right in this moment. What choice am I making right now? And then you'll see that's the nexus, that's the threshold where you actually change the habit and break the habit. Every day, we're getting better at whatever we're spending our time on. This means that we're actively practicing that particular thing. The trouble is, sometimes we practice and get better at things that don't lead us to where we want to go. We all know how difficult it can feel to struggle within ourselves when we're trying to break a habit, and also how good it feels to actually change something that's been challenging us for a really long time. So the thing we need to get better at is making the moment-to-moment choice to practice a new and healthy habit. When we take away the conscious energy that feeds the momentum of the old habit, we begin creating momentum in a different and empowering direction. Remember, the same energy that you use to maintain the old habit can be used to create a new one. So, in this moment, what is your choice? And that's our show for this week. I want to thank you for showing up and participating with this show. I hope you found something very useful for your personal growth journey. And I want to kind of invite you to contact me with questions or comments on my website, thegeniusway.com. On there, you'll also find a way to sign up for a free resource library where I'll be adding tools for you to be able to use in your daily life. Until next week, stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummel on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel.